Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm a touch late. Had a small cat emergency.
Is your small cat okay?
Oh, the cat's fine. He just vomited everywhere,
Okay, so
which is
standard
awesome.
cat operating procedure, really.
He waited until right before the meeting before he did that.
Exactly.
So
What I
thoughtful.
get. Right, I'm going to post a link to our meeting agenda in the notes. Please mark your attendance. And if you have any items you want to add as opens, please do. We'll get started in just 1 minute. All right, everybody. One more time, just in case I missed it, I'll post a link to our agenda. As is tradition, on the March 15th edition of the OpenSSS Developer Best Practices Working Group, do we have any new friends that wanted to introduce themselves today?
Yeah, hi. This is Varun here. I think this is the first time I'm joining this meeting. I've attended some of the other. Actually, I've just attended the scorecards meeting a couple of times. So I'm the founder of Step Security, which is a startup in the software supply chain space. And before that, I used to work at Microsoft.
Very nice. Well, welcome, Varun. Varun has an item he wants to talk about with the group in a moment. Before we jump into the opens, do we have any of our member projects that wanted to give an update quickly to the group?
Hey, Ricardo here.
Hello.
I see that I'm iPhone 12 for some reason, so I identify as an iPhone 12 now, I guess. I have a small update on behalf of Glenn because he couldn't make it today because he's giving a training. And well, I'm feeling a lot better since my burnout, so I'll probably also be joining more often than not these days. So I want to share a little link in the chat. So for the box that Glenn made for the learning platform. So I think he probably already told about the Apache Guacamole Docker image that he was building on. So that's well, getting more and more concrete. From ING, they're now building on the Java labs and also all the test cases for Zap proxy that we gonna automate security tests on the code and the fixes on the code in the Guacamole box and stuff. So that's all taking shape and looking good.
Excellent. Any questions? Thank you. Anyone, any of our other member projects want to give a quick update on what's going on?
Sure. Spiros here from OpenCRE, the integration project. I added in our notes, we created the alpha version of the graph, so you can see all the integrations and all the data we have in a visual format rather than a list of lists, which might be better for some people. Our next steps is to drastically improve performance. There is a PR open and many more coming. And we have a PR open for importing miscellaneous Git projects via URL. And you could expect this to land and extensive documentation on this by the end of this month. They should allow the project to be to import documentation and other projects and CREs and standards from GitHub or GitLab much more flexibly. That's all.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate the update, Spiros. Welcome back, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you very much. Okay, so couple quick things. Best practices badge. As happens occasionally, vulnerable dependency was reported. We quickly updated, which really just shows that, hey, getting reports about vulnerable dependencies and having a fast update process can actually work. What an amazing construct. Yeah, who knew? And probably more importantly, yeah, I've unfortunately I've been away for a bit, but for personal reasons. But the plan is to start soon switching to bestpractices.dev, and if we can ever get some consensus, a new logo. So um, it may be that the move the website happens first, so we'll see about that. Logos are hard. On the edX course, there's some discussions, maybe making their certifications free. Details TBD. That's I don't think that's a certainty yet, but we want more people to get certifications, so that's in discussion. The broader issues, we want more people to be certified because we want to have a way for people to show that people know at least the basics, the fundamentals.
Mhm.
Okay.
Very nice. Right. Any of our other member projects want to share an update? Hi, Zayef.
So, hey, hi. So it's not listed in the project, but I have an update on the MFA distribution. So as for the GitHub YubiKeys, we distributed like around 80 YubiKeys. Out of these 80 YubiKeys, 70 already had MFA activated. 5 activated MFA after receiving the YubiKey, and 5 still didn't activate MFA. The figures that I don't have and that I cannot have is out of the 70 that already had MFA activated, well, all of them had either SMS or app method to use MFA, and I don't know how many of them actually switched to the physical key. So actually, how many of them used them? But I mean, we can assume if they ordered them and they had already MFA activated, we can assume that they used them basically. So yeah, that's it.
Xavier, would you mind typing that
yes, I will.
Those
I will.
stats into the project updates?
I will. Sure.
I added a section for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Project updates.
I will do that right now.
Thank you very much.
So speaking of YubiKeys, I mean, Xavier, I just sent David a new email because I know he was out and I don't think he had a chance to follow up, but we had a request for 9 more YubiKeys from the Knative project. It took them a long time to get their list together. I mean, they are not the last ones, the Kubernetes folks. I'm still waiting. Every time they think they're almost done, they say, oh, just a moment. But so, you know, David has the full list. He can send
so
that.
I will. Okay, so I will look for that. Thank you, Arno.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
I'm
and
also
maybe-
I'm also
Sorry,
happy to facilitate contact with Gradle people. I'm not at Gradle anymore, but the Gradle team never really followed up and got back to anybody about YubiKeys. But I can coordinate getting you in contact if you want to reach out to them more directly.
That'd be great because the YubiKeys don't have the time limit that the other ones had. So, you know, it's perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned, unless somebody objects to dribble and drabs. The goal is to get things out. And Crow, maybe I've been the distributor. Maybe I should find you or somebody else to be a co-distributor, so I'm not I'm not the holdup because I don't. That was an unfortunate personal problems.
Yeah, no,
that
that'd be
I
fine.
couldn't control.
Glad to assist. All right. Any questions about any of the project updates about the MFA distribution before we move on to opens? All right. I yield the floor to Varun, who wants to give us a demo of Hardened Runner. Take it away, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, let me just share my desktop. Okay,
You
so
can see your screen.
yeah. Just to give a bit of a background about this project and the reason for it. So the reason for it is, and to give the demo, I'll be using this this repository. So it's called Supply Chain Code, but it essentially lists down some of the past threats related to uh, essentially compromised build tools and dependencies, and and Hardened Runner is a way to detect these and prevent exfiltration of credentials and so on. So what it does is, what it is essentially a security agent for the GitHub hosted runner to monitor the build process. So when you run a GitHub Actions, essentially there is a virtual machine that gets created, and what this GitHub Action does is it installs an agent onto that virtual machine and starts to monitor the file activities, essentially file writes and network connections. And so that's just a bit of a background. I think it'll become clearer as I give the demo. So in order to give the demo, what I'll do is, and feel free to ask questions. So let's say we have this workflow. I'm going to change it in a bit, but essentially it's just doing some checkout of the code and running a test and then uploading coverage. And so this is the one. And this is just one of the websites where you can copy this, and in here I'll not do the other things. I'll just add the Hardened Runner action. So you can basically add it from here. And I'll go ahead and change this. So that's how developers can add it to their workflow file. It gets added as the first step. And let me go ahead and commit this. So when this workflow runs, now what's going to happen is at this point there is a new VM being sort of allocated, and all of the actions that run essentially do have sudo access on that VM, and so this action uses that sudo access in order to install an agent. And one of the goals is to install it in less than 5 seconds. In this case, it took 6 seconds, but the goal is for it to be fast in terms of installation, so people don't complain about it taking too long. And so in this step, this is where it downloads, installs it, and it starts to monitor the rest of the steps. And once it's finished, there's this link that you can click, and it gives a view into what happened in each of those steps. And this is the idea, is to give sort of a process monitor view that when you did an action/checkout, this was the process that was called, and it made an outbound call to GitHub. And this was the process that was called, and it wrote to the source code. And when you had a step for upload coverage to CodeCov, it made an outbound call to codecov.io, and so it's basically monitoring. It's actually running a DNS proxy in there. And then after this, you also get a recommended policy based on these endpoints. And you can say that, now I want to block traffic and only allow these endpoints. So let's say I go ahead and copy this. There's also an option where you can disable telemetry, because all of this telemetry is being sent right now. So for block mode, you can also say that I want to disable telemetry. Let me not do that. It'll probably interfere with the demo. So this, let's say I copy this, go back, and in here, and this is like there is this two-step process where you first audit it and then you change it to block, and and some of the developers who are using it just keep it at audit mode. That's fine. So change this.
Yeah, have you thought about having a mode where instead of just the snippet of text to add basically a here's the new version, you just copy paste the whole thing and then it
Yeah, that was
you
in
don't have
fact
to do this.
there's actually an issue open for that. Someone had opened an issue for that to do it in exactly that way. But I hope this would.
To reduce the problems you're just having.
Yeah, and I'm on my laptop right now, not my full keyboard and monitor. So this is creating a bigger problem than I thought.
Not a problem. My hat's off to everybody who challenges the demo gods. I'm laughing because I like many other people have experienced what you're experiencing. So carry on.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the next one is.
It's fine. I mean, I think we get the point.
Yeah, I think, essentially what will happen, as a next step is that I was just going to add another call and it would get blocked and it would show in an annotation. Actually, what I could do is just show one of the previous runs, like in this case, it would basically say traffic to this IP address was blocked. And, and in the insights link, it would show this as blocked in here. And it can also monitor. It also monitors the file system, so it can actually detect changes to source code. There's no policy around that has been set. But yeah, I guess that was the demo.
Have you thought about adding other runners like Circle CI?
That's sort of on the plan, but the idea is to actually get some more adoption for this and iron out all of these usability and developer experience issues before trying to implement it for other environments. In fact, one person had used it for a GitHub hosted scenario where it was hosted on Kubernetes, because you can also run GitHub Actions on a Kubernetes thing on your own, and it wasn't working there. So there's definitely opportunity to have it run in more scenarios. But I guess the first step is just to sort of get more adoption, and which is why the reason I'm doing these demos. And I had done one in the scorecards meeting and also in this working group, and and other working groups is to try to make this into an OSSF project. And that way the open source projects will just have more trust on it, and I think that it'll lead to more adoption.
Mhm.
What questions does the group have for Varun? Or comments? Or cat pictures?
No cat pictures. I've got a dog though. But I guess the one, it's not really a complaint. It's an observation, but maybe it's the first step of using the agent is to install the agent, which makes complete sense to me. But I'm hey, hey, install a random agent in order to improve security. Always has me a little worried. I think it's reasonable. We just need to find a way to provide confidence that adding this agent will help and not hurt. So I think that might be worth thinking through, as well as, of course, improving what it can do. But that seems like that would be a challenge. I'm not sure exactly how to do that, but that seems like something worth thinking about to increase the likelihood of its use.
Mm.
I like the
Yeah.
idea.
So I like the idea. I had exactly the same question as David at the beginning. Do you want to extend that to other CIs? To address David's point, I think that yes, if this tool, this agent is kind of sanctioned either by the CI products themselves, GitHub Actions, Circle CI, etc., that could be a solution. Or if it's sanctioned by our working group, perhaps saying, "Hey, as a best practice, you could include that to your stuff." Perhaps it gives some assurance.
Yeah, and frankly, maybe pointing off to here's some evidence about why we believe that this, how we've protected this, this thing's chain, so that I realize there's a turtles all the way down kind of problem, but at least there's some evidence that this thing isn't an attack itself. So we've hardened it up and so on, so that people will feel confident about using it.
Yeah, I mean, in typical virtual machine, like a cloud VM security, there are agents that are run, but a lot of times the developer is not really aware of them, aware of these. And in this case, the situation is that there's this VM, but you want to get this agent installed, you want to get it done before other steps run. And the only way that I could think of it was to have it as a first step. But yeah, it definitely raises that you're trying to monitor all of the rest of the stuff, but what about the security of this action itself? And
Right.
yeah,
Security is it itself a malicious app? I don't believe you're
Mm.
malicious, by the way. Just I think we want to make sure that we we don't seem
Yeah.
hypocritical.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point, and I think that's why having it as a OpenSSF project or like another sanctioned project would give more. There'll be more people who would be looking at it from a contributions perspective, and I think it'll give more confidence to people about it that has gone through some sort of vetting process and so on.
I don't know of anything within the OpenSSF like this thing. Does anyone?
I don't pop into the tools or the salsa or the supply chain group. They may have something, but yeah, I'm not aware of anything. Matt, you have a question.
Yeah. So my reaction is that I'm not doing the work directly, but a colleague of mine is working in Container D, for example, and is the approach that the container space, OCI space is taking is in Kubernetes together is a layered approach. And much of the things we saw being locked down here are already being planned or already built into things like Container D. So I'm wondering, this, if you're not using Container D or an approved OCI container runner, you probably won't have those features. So maybe that's valuable for those spaces. But I'm just wondering about this again, as David, you said, I consider this a mutation, and most of my customers wouldn't want to install things like this into their application space. So,
Well, of course, a lot of people aren't using Container D, so it's perfectly reasonable to have a solution for those folks.
yeah, well, and then Docker leverages, is leveraged part of Container D. So I think that the entire container space and most things are running containers in terms of cloud. I have to say, unless you're running bare metal VMs, and you have lockdown things there at the VM level, hypervisor level. So you have alternatives in the cloud space.
Yeah. So I'll go back and read more on the container D stuff. In the case of GitHub Actions, so what happens is that there is this Ubuntu VM which is set up, and the different actions you can either implement as a node action or as a container action. In fact, most of them are implemented as node actions because of the time it takes to download the container image. So in fact, even if you look at the GitHub Actions around checkout, the one that actually checks out the code, that's implemented as a node action, not as a container. So I guess it's just these different CI/CD systems work in different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anything that is essential to running something in the application space, we're looking to lock down in an image itself that we sign and verify. So we would never, I think that anything in the security space we would not pull in as a separate application from a GitHub action, those type of things.
Mm.
Right, but if you're using GitHub Actions, certainly it will
Yeah, I mean, it's
decide to monitor.
it's layered coverage. I'm saying when it comes to hardened builds, Salsa level 3, I think that you would look to go look in your runtime stack to implement some of these things, uniformly.
Before I go to Vicky, in the chat, Varun, Ava had a comment.
S-trace and eBGP based monitoring and container. Is this eBGP? Is this eBPF?
Yeah, I think they mean eBPF.
Yeah. So right now the agent actually uses audit D, but the plan is that in the future it would use eBPF, and that will actually become more powerful. Yeah. Yes, but right now it's using audit D for the monitoring and just IP tables for the firewall stuff.
Yeah, that said, I agree. Yeah, so many third line. I agree with Ava. On the other hand, taking that data and then turning it into actionable. Please insert this, I think, is the trick going on here. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Next up, Vicky had a question or comment.
Yeah, morning all. So this is currently based in GitHub Actions, and obviously that's a logical place to start at the moment. Let me put my hand down now before I forget. But I'm wondering what the plans are, whether there are any plans actually to support other CI/CD type systems rather than purely focusing on GitHub, because so many projects do not use GitHub Actions. And so if this is something that does gain adoption. I'm sorry, David, I missed that. It's not that I'm ignoring you.
No, I think it certainly can be done because essentially a lot of the CI/CD providers just provide a VM, and once you have a VM, you can sort of do the same sort of thing. But there are also some differences in terms of APIs and stuff like that for the CI/CD. Like when it does the correlation, it actually uses the API from GitHub in order to do that correlation. So it can be done, but I guess the first step is to just get more adoption with GitHub Actions to understand how, what should the developer experience be, and what are some of the pain points and stuff like that. And once it gets more adoption, then I guess the folks who are using it would probably start making these asks to, make it available in other like Circle CI and maybe even GitLab CI and so on.
So is this more of a proof of concept at this point, or is it actually live and being used by, you keep saying more adoption. What adoption do you have so far? And what are you hearing about it?
Yeah, so it's being used. Maybe I can share my screen again. So it's being so there is this dependency thing that that you see here, and so like there's one here that just got added today, and there's this one ESLint plugin React which is using it, and Kubernetes release. So there are about 20, 25 odd. Some of them are just forks and stuff like that. There's this another one that's using it. This one, it's being used. It's being used both in audit and block mode. And there's also good sort of feedback which I've put in as testimonials. But at the same time, the adoption is not like in the thousands. So here are some of the important repositories, and then I'd also noted down some testimonials from people who used it and the shared feedback. So there is it's being used and there is adoption, but it's not as high as it can be. Yeah.
Do you have any other feedback or questions for Varun? Well, we really appreciate you coming here today, Varun. Hopefully you'll won't be a stranger. You can stop back in the future. We're the technical advisory committee for the OpenSSF is working on a process around ingesting and kind of donation of new projects. So that's in flight, that's not ready. So if you were looking to potentially turn this over to the foundation, we're not there yet, but I can follow up with you in a few weeks, a month or so, once that process has been developed, to kind of point you to how, if you wanted to do that, you could petition to go through that process.
Okay, sure.
If I can quickly add, I'm going to experiment. Usually we have people kind of try things out or look at it before we bring in. But if it's pre-existing, so I'm going to try to slip it into the CI best practices badge. Most of our stuff is in Circle CI, but we do have some GitHub actions. So I'm going to slip that in, and Vern, I'm looking forward to giving it a whirl, as kicking the tires, as it were. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, David has something exciting to talk about, a survey.
Well, I don't know how exciting it is yet. I had some personal issues I had to deal with recently, so I've been out for a little bit. But when I came back yesterday, I discovered that LF Research is working on some sort of survey. So, oh, tell me more. So I'm going to try to convince them to at least let the folks here take a gander. I've told them about this group and pointed them to maybe through a posting on the mailing list. But it sounds like they want to get something out quickly. So look for that, and they may have a short deadline when they post.
The Vuln disclosures group, we've been talking about that as well. You're aware of, if you could add them as well, because we've been talking about doing a survey.
Yeah, I think this is more of a survey for practices used in development as opposed to vulnerability disclosures.
Okay.
But if they focus more on vulnerability disclosures, then yeah, I totally agree. That would be the right vulnerability disclosures or processing of vulnerabilities. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I put something in the notes too, because we run a survey, a research ourselves in the GitHub Security Lab, but it was specifically focused on the disclosure process and on the interaction between the two population. So if there is a part around that in the survey, I'm very happy to collaborate with Stefan and Drake and see if there are overlaps or things that he can just reuse and not redo, etc., etc.
Okay, that'd be awesome. I'll shoot an email to at least connect to each other.
Awesome.
So I don't know. Is that I'm coming in rather cold on this thing, but apparently, so he's been working on it, and I've been out, so I don't know the full picture, but so maybe he'll tell me the full picture too while we're at it.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Did anyone have any additional opens they wanted to talk about with the group? All right. I would like to carve off the majority of the next call, if possible, to talk about the newbie's view for security coding practices, to maybe start to get some momentum on that. Unfortunately, we missed the Linux Foundation's Security Summit call for papers. That would have been a nice place to potentially formally talk about the group and things like how to get more access to developers. There'll be plenty of other opportunities for conferences, so to speak. But I'd like to, if everyone's okay with that, dedicate most of the next call to collaborating on that particular little project. Does that sound acceptable to everybody? I have a nod and a thumbs up. I'll take that.
It would be nice to lay out before what we are going to do next time, so that we can prepare it a bit and not just come in every day.
I will talk to Glenn to get the graphic kind of laid out, so we can kind of use that as a straw man to poke at, and then we can I'll try to put together an outline to talk us through the conversation next time. That sound okay? Does anyone have any additional topics they wanted to talk about today? All right. With that, I will bid you all a good day. Enjoy a free time of 20 minutes on your calendar. Go hide from work. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Varun for presenting. And we will talk to you all in 2 weeks. Have a great rest of your day.
Yo, bye.
See you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.